Hi, I'm Dean with Old English Outfitters, and today we're going to be reviewing the Trijicon SRO Gen 2. Now, I know there have been videos put out for these before, but we recently started stocking a lot more Trijicon optics, and I have been using this one on several of my personal guns. Wanted to take the time and discuss it, and also compare it to the standard RMR, and just give a very plain language explanation of what they could both be used for and where they both shine. So this has the same optics footprint as the RMR and takes the same kind of battery. Interesting features of the SRO, however, are that it has, of course, a much wider and larger lens to give you a much bigger sight picture with better field of view, and it is a top feed battery. That is one of the most annoying parts of the RMR. Now, luckily for Trijicon, the RMR is such a good optic that people don't really care that you have to take it off and ruin your zero every time you want to change your battery, but it is still rather annoying. So they were looking out for us on the SRO. They did make it a top feed battery, so you don't have to mess with your zero. You never have to take this optic off if you never want to, if it's going to have its home on one single gun. So same optics footprint as the RMR. However, the lens does sit a lot farther forward than on the RMR here. We have one for comparison. And if you can see the two, if we line up the rear of the optics body, the SRO sticks out a good 1/4 inch in front of that. That can mess with holster fit, particularly on any kind of extra retention holster, like the Safari Lance. Just that lens jutting forward, it can impact the locking mechanism and it won't allow your gun to lock properly. This optic has been out for several years now, so people are starting to adapt and make holsters that will accept both. But it's good to check and research if you're planning on getting one of these. Make sure it will fit your rig that you have now. Or if you don't have a rig, buy one that'll fit it. Shooting this optic is a pleasure. If you've ever shot a lot of red dot handguns, you'll know that acquiring the dot is the hardest part. Because once the dot's in the window and you have your sight picture on target, it's easy money, right? Put the red and that's where the bullet goes. You still need proper fundamentals and all that, but it does make it a lot easier and works with your eye how your eye was designed. Acquiring the dot, however, from the holster or just from a low-ready position can be difficult for some people. They lose the dot, they start fishing for it, and they never find it, and then they break their shot, and they miss. The SRO lens is kind of like a big, nice safety blanket. So there is so much glass, I find it hard to not pick up the dot. Pull your sight, use your proper grip fundamentals, build your grip, and the dot will appear somewhere in that window because the window is wider than the body of the gun and certainly taller, which gives you a lot of margin of error. For most shooters, when you pull your gun up, particularly with Glocks because of that grip angle, if you do not see the dot, it is most likely high. So if we have more body to the lens high, that gives us a wider margin for error for acquiring the dot. All that to say, shooting the SRO and picking the SRO up is a lot faster for me. I find it easy to present. The dot is pretty much always centered for me, but I shoot a lot of red dot handguns, so I'm kind of an outlier. Even so, when I first started using this optic on a different gun than Glocks and had to change my grip fundamentals a little bit for the different angle, that dot was still there. A little high, but still visible. Whereas on a very narrow window, like an RMR, that is already a small boxy optic and then has this horn shape on the top. It's just a much smaller lens overall. You will, if you don't present properly, you will almost always have to squeeze that pinky and drop the dot into the window. You have to be right on the money with the presentation of the pistol for you to pick that dot up in sub-second times. I still like the RMR. I have shot a lot of RMRs or RMR-sized optics. I've never found it a problem. There's nothing wrong with the smaller footprint, and we'll talk about the benefits of that here in a minute. But for a duty gun or a competition gun, that's really going to be more of a hand rifle, to be reductive, but something that you want to be able to connect with really far away and use quickly, still being a belt-mounted handgun, a larger optic is nice. And this fits right inside the parameters of almost too big, but not too big. So it's a lot bigger, it's a lot more usable, but it still stays inside the general lines of the pistol. It's not a, freaking scout scope on a revolver that's huge and unwieldy. It's still pretty low profile compared to a lot of things that you'll find on handguns. But for the larger size, you get a lot more usability. People that have not shot a lot of red dots on handguns, a lot of them will find a wider lens a lot easier to use. That's why a lot of new shooters will like kind of the Delta Point or the Romeo Pro, because those do have larger windows than, say, a Holosun 507 or a Trijicon RMR. It's not much, but it's enough that you are able to perceive it and you just feel, again, like you've got a safety blanket. You feel like you have more area to find the dot. This, even more area than those. So it is just very nice to shoot and pick up the dot. Now, comparing the two and methods of use, why you would use them. So, the Gen 1 SRO had some durability issues. Most people have seen Sage Dynamics drop tests where he drops it and the thing just explodes into 1,000 pieces. The Gen 2s, they did a little bit to change the housing, the optic body itself, and they made the glass a lot thicker. So while this will most likely never be as durable as an RMR, just due to the shape, you can't make a circle as strong as a square, not when we're dealing with thin-walled aluminum, but they are a lot more durable than the original SROs. There's a lot of big police departments. Somewhere in Texas, I think it's the Dallas-Fort Worth area police department. They just did a multi-million-dollar contract with Trijicon, and they have SROs on every one of their officers' duty pistols. And they're holding up fine. A lot of competition shooters will use these, and I've got a lot of buddies in law enforcement that have these mounted on their pistols as well. And they're holding up fine. Even the Gen 1s will hold up well to normal use and normal impact, but dropping anything straight on the lens is probably going to damage it. Even if you drop this one straight on the lens, there's a chance that it would delaminate or crack, or at the very least scratch up the housing and maybe deform it a little bit. That's going to happen. It's made of glass, okay? We can't make glass as durable as bare metal. And for you iron sight guys, you get a point, because an optic is never really going to be as durable as iron sights because they're just forged or machined steel. I get it. Now, that doesn't mean these are by any means not durable. I'd be willing to bet that I will never, ever, ever do anything to break these optics, and I'm pretty hard on my guns. So, between the two of them, I would still probably choose the RMR for my duty gun and for my carry gun, because it is a small enough footprint and I have used it enough to where I find it very usable and it's still easy for me to pick up the dot. It's a lot more durable, undeniably. People have tried their best to beat RMRs to death and the RMR just keeps on kicking. I would probably still choose this for my duty gun. And for my carry gun, this is actually my carry gun right here. Glock 19 Gen 5, barely any modification, stock trigger, RMR, direct milled with C&H precision sights. I also have a grip plug here. No magwell, nothing fancy. It still maintains a very low profile in hand and on the belt. I carry appendix, so when you have this against that kind of 12-30 position on your hip, I'm right-handed, so it'll be my right, in the front of your hip anyway, the crease of your hip. If you have a very large body optic, you will see that stick out from the belt quite a bit. The SRO is a prime example of that. So is the Delta Point. Now, if you have the optic sticking out beyond the perimeters of your body and your belt, you will have it impact things. Getting in the car, reaching into your trunk or over your tailgate, leaning over the counter at the store, it's going to hit stuff. It's going to have very minor impacts. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to break, but I just prefer a little bit lower profile optic. But for competition, or for a range gun or an instruction gun, the SRO is unmatched, in my opinion. One of the very best optics out there. It is so quick and so easy to pick up the dot and to keep the dot in the glass. So in strings of rapid fire, I find I never lose my dot with an SRO. Never. It always stays in the window and just reciprocates up and down. That nice clean painted line in the center of the glass, as it should. With an RMR or something smaller, certainly one of the 507Ks that I've had on smaller carry pistols, I will occasionally lose the dot in strings of fire. Now, it drops right back down, but anytime you lose your sight picture, that's not necessarily a good thing. So shooting fast and staying accurate, the SRO is unmatched. For a carry gun and for a duty gun, I'm willing to make certain sacrifices. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't use an SRO as a duty optic or anything like that, but just my personal preference, I like the RMR. This will hold up to the beating. It absolutely would. But with the problems it can cause with holster fit and some of the past stuff and the fact that I already have this mounted on a duty gun, an RMR, I'm not going to change my setup just because I like the SRO. I have this on my competition gun. It's on this custom Glock 19 Gen 5 that one-off coating did for me right now. Normally, it has a home on my PDP, which is kind of my competition gun, my open division gun. I like it a lot. It's very easy to shoot. It's very easy to maintain the dot. So pick your poison, as with anything in the gun industry. Everything has certain benefits. As long as you are buying a quality product, you're not necessarily doing anything wrong, but certain things are going to be specialized. There is no one size fits all. Now, you could use an RMR for competition. If there was a one size fits all, I think the RMR would be closest. And yet, there is an option out there that performs better. And I'm sure in a few years there will be something even better than the SRO. Maybe it's a Gen 3 that's even more durable, or something that EOTech comes out with. We never know, because things are always changing in the gun industry. But if you already have an RMR mounted up, that's a great optic. But if you want a slick, absolutely awesome, fast-performing optic that is very accurate and still very durable, the SRO would be a great option for you. If you have any questions about availability or pricing, please give us a call or visit our website. I'm Dean with Old English Outfitters, and we'll see you next time.